It's time for a midseason report on our second-year players. A surprising area of growth for Keyonte George and Brice Sensabaugh is becoming the feel-good story of the year. It's all next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. That will be a common occurrence. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. And fired up for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Here's what I've got for you today. We're going to do points gained, which we haven't done in a little while. A stunner on who's on top as the most impactful offensive player in the NBA right now. Then we'll today look at the midseason report with Keyonte George and Brice Sensabaugh. Yesterday on the show, we did the rookie report, and it was really interesting, but there was nothing to comp it to. And so this is super cool today because we can look at Keyonte, and we're going to see an area of improvement that's really surprising. And we can look at Brice and kind of look at what he's doing, and unfortunately can't really look at Taylor. But we can look at these guys compared to what they did a year ago and see the growth. So super cool to do that. Thank you very much for all the everydayers out there that tune into this program each and every day, make it a part of your life. You are what drives us, and we super appreciate it, all of you. All right, let's get it started. Let's start with Keyonte George. And I want to. Here's how we're gonna look. Here's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna look at any new skills, any areas of development. And then we're going to go back to their draft. And what were the questions and concerns that had Keyonte go 16th, Brice go 28th? And have those been answered? Or were those accurate? Usually those are accurate. And what happens next is that they just get better at the other stuff. So obviously Keyonte had a brutal start to the season. And what jumps out to me right now is when we look at Keyonte's season, we're going to be able to find improvements in what he did in the 28 games he's played so far this year compared to the 75 games he played last year when the guy literally started the year with a 5 or 10 game stretch. It was as bad as any player ever in the history of the NBA to start a season. So to me, that's pretty exciting. Now, what went wrong to start the year? I truly don't know. But if you go his opening 9 games of the year, he sits one of the opening 10 games out. He starts the year shooting 32% from the field and 29% from three. If we just turn it and take the next 18 games, he's shooting 43% from the field and 38% from three and 83% from the free throw line. So I had said that 30 games was going to be kind of my mark. He hasn't actually played 30 games yet because he's missed those 4, and now he's missed 5 in a row. But we're seeing a massive improvement. From a dreadful start to now, since from game 11 through 33, pretty viable, good play. The other one that I've seen, if you want his new skill that we're looking at, to me, his new skill is calmness. I always felt like he was just trying to insert himself on the game with such a rush. And you hear Brice and you hear Keyonte, they both will talk about letting the game come to them. And there's some maturity to that that's happening out of both of them right now. That Keyonte does not seem to me right now that he has to force himself on the game. What's interesting is his usage rate is way up. And we'll get to that in a second. And the way he's playing seems to be more calm. So the game truly will just come to you. And I think that calmness is really, really important. So in regards to kind of a new skill, I don't know if that's a skill, but that's what I would say. The other one on Key that's really, really interesting is what he's done with his shooting. If we use the site Cleaning the Glass, and for those of you on YouTube, I will share the screen with you. For those of you on audio, I promise you it will still make sense. If you look at, never mind. If I go to this window, that's really funny. I'm logged in on my other browser. I'm not on this one, so I can't share it. So Keyonte is gone. Last year, his shooting accuracy was in the 12% effective field goal percentage, 12th percentile. And this year, it's in the 31st. So it's not great, but it's better. But remember, we had that start. What the big jump he's made is he's gone from shooting 59% at the rim and being the 35th percentile to the 82nd percentile at the rim in the 70th percentile. So when you see that, the first thing you go check is, well, it must be shooting at the rim less. And that's not true. He's actually, interestingly, his shot distribution this year is exactly the same as last year. So he only shoots 14% of his shots at the rim, which is way too low. He's got to figure out how to get to the cup. For his position, that's in about the 14th percentile also. He takes about 28% of his shots as short mid-range, about 5 or 6% of his shots as long twos, 7 or 8% as corner threes, and 44% of his shots as above the break threes. It's the exact same as it was a year ago, which is interesting. Because that means that while it's on limited attempts, only 43, the rim jump is real. So that's development. Calmness to me is the skill. Learning how to finish the rim, when to finish the rim. That's like what Isaiah Collier is going to learn next year. That's skill. That's time. The other one that's interesting on Keyonte is last year he was not a good catch and shoot guy, and he was a good off the bounce three-point shooting, and that's flipped this year. He's shooting 38% on catch and shoot threes. That's really good. The pull-up three-point shooting, off the bounce three-point shooting will be vital to his success because that's coming off pick and rolls in the pocket, trying to make that play. Last year he was really pretty good. This year he's 32%, which isn't great. Now, it's not a big jump. He was at 35, 36% last year. I mean, it just takes getting going for a little while. And the fact that he's shown that already, I think, is interesting, or at least positive. But legitimately, of guys in the NBA who've taken 100 shots, and he's taken 104, so probably be fair to do a filter that's a little different than that, which is, excuse me. Sorry, guys. I wish I could avoid that. But if we do 75, got attempts at three, he's definitely in the lower portion of three-point shooting. So on off the bounce, like the best in the league, Zach LaVine, Anthony Edwards, Colin Sexton are all in the 40s. The worst in the league is Derek White at 30, Brandon Miller, who we'll see tonight at 30, CJ McCollum at 30, we'll see the next two nights. And Keyonte's about the 8th, 9th worst of the 54 guys. So he's in the bottom 20 percentile on off the bounce. So he needs to get that back up. League average is about 36, right where he was last year. So when we look at Keyonte and we take his new skill, I think is calmness. I think it's great. I love the way he was playing. I'm so bummed he's been out because I love the way he was playing beforehand. The new skill development is he's much better at the rim than he's been before. And then the question when he was drafted were really two things. And I think they're both pretty legit still. So one was his assist to turnover ratio at Baylor he had more turnovers than he had assists. He had 95 turnovers and 91 assists. Like, his turnover rate's still way too high. I don't mind it in the sense that I do think turnovers are leading to make plays, but 3.5 turnovers a game at some point has to come down. And the other question was whether he could shoot, whether the ball would go in the basket. He was a 38% shooter from the field and 34% shooter at Baylor. And I think we're seeing signs in that last 18 games that I just talked about of 43 and 38, that 43% from the field and 38% from three, that it's getting better. And so I think that those are, you're seeing it get better, but I think it's still at least a little bit of a legitimate question. So, yeah, I think the two draft questions on him are still legit. I think we've seen growth and seen development in year two. And I think the rim finishing is really interesting. And I think keeping an eye on whether the off-the-bounce three comes back in the second half of the season will be there. And I think as he plays with more calmness, actually, I think all of the percentages will increase. His shot selection is just so much better. Brice Sensabaugh is becoming a little bit of the feel-good story of the year for the Jazz, and we'll touch on that next on Locked On Jazz. Today's show on Locked On Jazz is brought to you by our friends over at Intercap Lending. Steve Carter is our own personal loan officer over at Intercap, does amazing work for us. It's been years and just 100% every time everyone comes back and says, amazing. And he really is. Intercap Lending is a mortgage company that's shaking up things by making home loans accessible, straightforward, and personal. Whether buying your first home, refinancing, or exploring options as a veteran, Intercap is there to guide you. Intercap understands how overwhelming the process is, and that's why we have gotten you your own personal loan officer in Steve Carter. And Steve's amazing. By the way, underwriting times are still at 24 hours. Most banks take 4 to 7 days. They're at 24 hours. And they still serve 60% of their own loans, which is why things happen better. Malcolm said, amazing, knowledgeable, helpful, friendly, way above and beyond about Steve Carter. Derek said, super easy to work with, got us approved and closed on a house in under 3 weeks. Their app makes everything a breeze. It's over at Intercap Lending. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com and I'll set you up with a VIP meeting over with Steve Carter. That's dlock09@gmail.com. Or you can call Steve at Intercap at 385-800-8528. That's 385-800-8528. Today's show is also brought to you by Hungry Root. Eating well, not easy. Meal planning, harder. Grocery shopping, miserable. So let's solve it all by using Hungry Root. It's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. Takes care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries based on taste, health goals, anti-inflammatory, high protein, gluten-free. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. So I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to your door. Huge time saver, healthy eating, so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root. Limited time, 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LOCKEDONNBA. Code LOCKEDONNBA to get 40% off your first box. Free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LOCKEDONNBA. Don't miss out. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Excuse me. I don't have a mute button. At least that I'm aware of. Do I? No, I do. Oh, I basically found a cough button. Okay. Let's talk about Bryce Sensabaugh. So, again, model, new skill, new development, and then back to the draft. So, obviously, Bryce Sensabaugh's on a heater right now, despite the illness that hit him in the middle. And if we just take his last 3 games, 34 against Miami, 27 against Orlando, and 16 against Brooklyn, pretty great. I think the first thing we have to remember about Bryce is he only played 32 games last year. So the jump we're seeing is mammoth. His field goal percentage has gone from 39% to 48%. His three-point shooting has gone from 29.6 to 41.7. His rebounding is down. His assists are down. His steals are up. And obviously his scoring is up, taking about the same amount of shots as he did all of last year. He's taking a few more threes and a little less like getting to line and driving. He came to the NBA as kind of a bully ball, mid-range shooter and has realized he has to change. And it's interesting. The thing that's really changed on him more than anything is just how the ball's going in the basket. So in regards to new skill, like he's making shots, but I'm not sure that I totally think this is a new skill. So what the new skill is, as Brice got to the NBA last year, it was so quick and his footwork wasn't good enough. And he worked in the offseason to change his footwork and to speed it up to allow him to get his shot off faster. I don't know if that's a new skill or if that's development. So development's the ball's going in, and the reason is because he added this skill in the offseason. This is a great example of like why you let guys develop. If we go back to Brice as a college player, he's an 83% free throw shooter. Well, that's the indicator. Like if you can shoot free throws, you're going to be able to shoot. He was also a 40% three-point shooter. Like every indicator in the world was he was going to shoot. And then last year in the middle of the year, he just couldn't make a shot. His life depended on it. Like it was brutal. And it was brutal for him. Not for us. Like it was brutal for him. Right? He just can't find it. I think he goes, if I remember correctly, he goes 7 games with like 1 3. And it's pretty ugly. And then, that's kind of how he closes his year. So I guess the first thing would be credit to Brice. Like he plays the last 18 games of the year last year, shoots 27% from 3, and goes home and says, all right, I got work to do. Fixes his body a little bit and fixes his footwork. And that's really been massive for him. If you look at his breakdown of where he's shooting frequency, kind of same thing, same story. Does not get to the rim at all. 4th percentile of forwards. He has reduced his mid-range floaters, which is good, and he's taking more threes. And he's making them, obviously. He's now in the 81st percentile of all shot makers at his position. His rim stuff has gotten better. He just doesn't get there very often. The one thing that's still got some real work to be done is he turns the ball over a ton. His turnover rate was 17% of possessions last year. It's the exact same this year. It's in the 2nd percentile of all forwards last year. 5th percentile this year. So that's still got a lot of work to do. None of these are finished products. But he really has become like a viable, like he's going to make his money maker's the shot. I do think he's playing better with teammates. And I think he oscillates here. Is that the right word? I think so. You really want to play in 0.5. In other words, ball comes to you. Boom. In 0.5, I'm deciding I'm either driving, passing, or shooting. Brice still will grab, pump fake, look around, see, then go to work. It means that it's harder on his teammates that way. Because if there is an advantage going on, somewhere he negates it with that. It might be why the offense has always been much worse when he's on the floor. It also could be who he's playing with. Like that's a noisy number, but if one of the skills is learning how to play with teammates, I would say we still have a way to go on that one. The questions coming out of the draft on Brice were, could he play with teammates? High usage rate, Ohio State. Could he stay healthy? Knees. And did he have with that body, was he quick enough? Both offensively, defensively, loose balls, things like that. It's interesting how much these draft analysis are actually like pretty accurate. And then what I think the question is whether or not their skill that they're good at. In Bryce's case right now, it's shot making, can overcome those. Because I think most of the time in the draft, the scouts are right. They kind of have what your weakness is and what your weakness in the NBA is going to be. Brice is not quick. If there was a loose ball percentage, he probably isn't great on it. Like, it takes him a while to rev that body up. But he's a great shot maker. And he's showing that, and he's worked really hard on it. And it's pretty awesome. And so he's figuring out, oh, this is my moneymaker. This is how I'm going to survive. And these other things, he's just got to get incrementally better at them, but they probably aren't going to stop. They're playing with teammates and continuing to move the basketball. I think he can solve without any problem. Like, that's just time. That's just getting used to it. That's just changing your habits. When you're the go-to guy in every team you've ever played, you get the ball, you get to dictate the tempo of it, not in the NBA. But I think Brice has become the feel-good story because that shooting is bona fide. That's an NBA player. And let's see if he can stack them. He's begun to stack them one after another, after another, after another. Pretty great. So we'll do points gained next, but the summary of the year 2 player report is growth. You know, we're really seeing it. Are they superstars? Probably not. And I think that's been hard for all of us because we want Keyonte to be the replacement of Donovan and we want Walker to be the replacement of Rudy. However, they're not probably those guys. But Keyonte is showing signs of being a viable NBA player. And Brice is showing himself to suddenly be an elite bona fide shooter. Pretty exciting. Pretty cool. Fun to watch this. Really. And also, like, we talked about Collier and Filipowski and Cody. Okay, well, look how much Keyonte and Brice have improved this year. And look at where Walker is. We'll talk about Walker tomorrow. Look where Walker is. Pretty great. Points gained. A stunning player on the top of points gained as the number 1 offensive player in the NBA this year. Next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. Wayfair's been the answer for a lot of people when it comes to furniture and housing and things like that. It's time to give your home a little TLC. Wayfair is the answer. I've found out about Wayfair from, every other person in the world has used Wayfair 100 times. Is that like literally the answer? Yeah, they've got such cool stuff, such modern stuff, so many different models, everything from like bedding to furniture to have a huge bedding and bath sales to really cool storage, shoe storage things. I mean, I'm in. I could spend a lot of time on the site. So whether you're tidying up, cleaning out, or making space for a new look, start with Wayfair. Everything you need, all within your budget. Currently look for furniture or huge selection. It makes it easy to find pieces that fit your style and budget. The free and hassle-free delivery, even the larger items. Wayfair site was so easy to navigate. You find everything in no time, and then you spend some extra time finding more stuff. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or your budget. We make it easy to tackle all your New Year's goals. Cleaning up, being better styled. What is your decor? What is your style? You can find it there. How did your item look in your home? It looks you can see all of it from Wayfair, every piece, every aspect of what it's going to look like. And the bookcases, I was just looking at the other day to try to clean up my messy office. It's all there at Wayfair. Check it out, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We have a daily newsletter for you. Comes to you tonight, Locked on Jazz. It's really good. Has Katie Heindel's national writing. Tomorrow, Mike Shears. Fantasy tips. And Sean Woodley of Locked on Raptors and Matt George of Locked on Kings have caught me. Please subscribe at LockedOnDaily.com to get your Locked Daily Locked on Jazz We have the highest open rate, so I appreciate everybody who does subscribe. If they open it every day, that makes us look good. Leading from the top is always a nice place to be. But I'm a little upset that the Raptors and the Kings, nothing like a 7-game win streak for the Kings to get us over the top of us. So please, if you've not subscribed already to Locked On Jazz Daily Free Newsletter, go to lockedondaily.com. All right, points gained is our offensive metric that we have for how we evaluate offensive players. It looks at what an offensive player does with the possessions they get every night, and then how efficient they are. So 2 skills here. 1, the ability to get a shot off matters in this league. 2, the ability to get a shot off and be efficient. Okay? So what we look at is a player like Karl-Anthony Towns, who's using 19.1 scoring opportunities a night. And he's on average scoring 3.4 points more in those 19 scoring opportunities than what an average player in the NBA would do. Okay? So the best offensive player in the NBA right now with the most positive impact is Karl-Anthony Towns. He and Nikola Jokic are tied at plus 3.4. Each year, we usually have 3 guys over 3, and we usually have about 10 guys over 2. If you look back over the years, I can show this to you. Last year, this is just Jazz, but last year, Joel Embiid was 3.5, Giannis was 3.2, Jokic was 2.8, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was next at, trying to make it so that people on YouTube can see it, 2.6 and 2.3. So you can see we usually have about 10. We have a little bit more right now. The year before that, Nikola Jokic was best at 4.3. Durant was 4.1. Embiid was 3.7. Curry was 3.2. Lillard was 3.1. We had 5 guys above 3. So a little unusual that year. Right now, we have 3 guys above 3. Karl-Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Then Domantas Sabonis at 2.9. And the hidden gem of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jared Allen at 2.9. Cameron Johnson's at 2.8. Zach LaVine at 2.7. 2 of the top 10 offensive players are available in the trade market. Kevin Durant, 2.4. Evan Mobley, 2.3. Nikola Vucevic, also available in the trade market, at 2.2. If this is what Zach LaVine is, someone should be giving up stuff for him. Because that's really, really good. That's a game changer. That changes your team. Larry Nance Jr. gets hurt in Atlanta, and suddenly they fall off, and no one understands why. Because Larry Nance Jr. was getting easy baskets for plus 2.1. Walker Kessler is the best Jazz player at 2.1. Let's look at the Jazz for a second. Walker at 2.1. John Collins at 1.6. Brice Sensabaugh at 0.8. That's really good for a guard. Colin Sexton at 0.6. That's really good. And Lowry at only 0.6. This is a dramatic change from a year ago. Much less efficient this year. Drew Eubanks, Johnny Juzang, Kyle Filipowski, Jordan Clarkson, -1. That's actually pretty good for Jordan. Key, -1.2. Okay, we want a development change. Let's look at both Brice and Keyonte from a year ago that we're looking at. And last year, Keyonte was -1.1 and Brice was -1.0. And Keyonte this year is a -1.2. So his usage is up and his efficiency was there. Cody -1.7, Isaiah -1.7, and then Taylor -2.9 in his limited time. Let's take a look at the bottom of the barrel. We looked at the top offensive players in the league. The bottom of the barrel, players who are having the least: Kawhi Leonard, DeJounte Murray in New Orleans, -3.3. This is one of my biggest points on this. The negative offensive player is actually equally as bad, if not worse, than the best offensive player, right? So we had 3 players that were +3. Well, there's only like 1 or 2 players that are -3. Like if you're -3, Kyle Kuzma -2.7, DeJounte -3.7, you're negating the best offensive player on your roster. Zion minus 2.3. Rookies are always here. So Stephen Castle minus 2.1, not a big deal. Jordan Hawkins minus 2.0 is a little concerning in second year. Keyshawn Johnson, second year player. Or Keyonte George, excuse me. Alex Sarr, rookie. Van Vliet minus 1.8. Quickly minus 1.8, surprising. All these rookies. All of these rookies. Bam Adebayo minus 1.6. Untalked about story in Miami. That's really bad. Terry Rozier minus 1.5. That's really bad. Scoot Henderson, we got it. At some point, you got to pick it up. Same thing like with Key. They've got to get efficient at some point. Paul George minus 1.3 is not really very good. Brandon Miller 1.3 in his second year. LaMelo Ball, there's the two guys we play tonight. Let's look at the recent trends. Last 10 games, Jaden Ivey, Cameron Johnson, and Paulo Banchero haven't played. Shea's the hottest player in the league. Followed by Karl-Anthony Towns, Zach LaVine, and this is crazy, LeBron James. LeBron James at plus 40 is shooting 57%, 47% from three, and 81% from the line recently. John Collins, limited time. Joel Embiid, Grayson Allen. Darius Garland's hot. Chris Boucher is hot. Luke hasn't played much. Jonathan Kuminga hasn't played much. Desmond Bane's hot. Brice Sensabaugh's hot. Hasn't played much, 2.6. Walker's hot, 2.2. We'll look at Jazz players in a second. Let's go to the bottom of the barrel. The coldest players in the league. Dylan Brooks, minus 3.6. Patty Mills. Devin Vassell, minus 3.5. Buddy Hield, minus 3.4. That's worn off. Jordan Hawkins, minus 3.2. Anthony Black, minus 3.1. LaMelo, who we see tonight, minus 2.8. That's bad. Real big question on LaMelo. I'm a huge fan. The numbers are huge, but the efficiency is so bad. The only one that's stunning here is Jalen Williams. Minus 2.3. Otherwise, if someone trades for Kyle Kuzma over Zach LaVine, I'm a little stunned. I guess would be really the takeaway I have on this today when you look at it. Let's look at Utah. Last 10 games, we've been playing all sorts of players. And tonight, we will be having a unique lineup as well as Colin Sexton's out for rest. So John Collins hasn't played much, 3.7. Price, 2.6. Walker, 2.2. Drew Eubanks playing really well, 1.5. Johnny Juzang. Jordan was more efficient than usual. Colin, minus 0.6. Not that. Lowry, negative 0.7. Not great. Isaiah Collier, minus 1.2. Keyonte, minus 1.4. And then bottom of the guys. That is your points gain look around the league. Karl-Anthony Towns, the hottest player. Most efficient offensive player. Most positively productive offensive player in the NBA. Stunner. All right. Jazz Hornets tonight. Look forward to talking to you then. Ron and I will be back with you for postcast. Thanks very much for tuning in to Locked on Jazz. If you don't follow me on any of the socials, please do it. DLock09. We've decided that we're just going to analyze chocolate chip cookies all the time. I'm going to figure out how to do cute TikTok things where you judge chocolate chip cookies. I'm going to have my guy Carlo at the Clippers tell me how to do all of his little TikTok edits like he does arenas, and I'm going to do it on chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, that's what we decided. There's going to be a whole chocolate chip cookie analysis at all times on my social accounts. DLock09. It's what I like most in life, that and skiing. Please sign up for the newsletter. And if you haven't followed or subscribed to the program yet, please do on whatever platform you're watching. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful day. We'll send you the first ever national 24/7 channel, Locked on NBA. Make sure you check out Locked on NBA game night at every game, every night on Locked on NBA.